Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm
and
Diva
this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
and Liz.
And this week is a new topic. It's a new day.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
what's going on? I have nothing to talk. I went to a farm today. It was really cool.
Ooh,
Uh, yeah, I took Ollie and we like pet some baby goats and
that sounds great.
fed some ducks, which was super fun. And took a couple tractor rides. It was very rural. It was really
very,
fun.
very agrarian.
Very agrarian. And it's a bummer because they haven't started their like October stuff yet, like all their Halloween stuff. But it's
So
also really
close.
cool because when they start the Halloween stuff, it's super expensive. Worth every penny at Underwood Farms, but very expensive. So
Mm,
yeah, there's the good things and bad things about going before then.
yeah.
Anyway, what's up with you? Anything exciting?
I don't know. Besides the pot pie I made that was so good. We just talked about our dinners respectively, and
Yeah, it sounded
that
so
was thrilling.
good. Honestly, like
Yeah.
my dinner sounded good until I heard yours, and I was like, God damn it. I wish I ate beef because I bet your beef stew pot pie is incredible.
I could just eat, I think, a pie crust a day, like a full,
Dude,
like just bake it and eat it.
yes. Oh my God, thank you.
So
I've
good.
never, every time I've said that to people, they're like, what? I'm like, What do you mean,
No,
what? That's the best. I
pie
crave
crust is so
pie
good.
just for the
Yeah.
pie crust. Like, it's
Hmm.
one of my favorite, like, singular, like, it's supposed to be part of something, but if you just single it out, it's better. I
Do you like when
almost
it's a
think.
little burnt on the end? Because I like that.
I
When it's a
do.
little charred. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I want it to have that. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
Hmm.
God damn it. Dude, I seriously will like have it's probably the thing I crave most often and like most consistently is
Pie.
pie. And it's
Yeah, I
mostly
love
the
pie.
crust. Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Fuck.
I had really good key lime pie last weekend. That was
Oh,
dope.
there's
Um,
nothing worse than a bad pie. And what makes a bad pie is an undercooked crust. And it's shocking how
mm,
often that happens.
I don't have a lot of bad ones. I'm lucky, but the savory crust moment we had tonight was very good.
Do you ever do a cream cheese crust? Have you ever done that?
Never tried that. No, this was a
Oh,
purchased Trader Joe's crust. I cheated.
oh,
I
here's
didn't make it.
no. Here's the thing. If you're
It
just
was
making
good.
like a butter crust, you might as well buy it. The difference in flavor,
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned, is
it's not
so
huge. Yeah,
negligible, you cannot tell. But I have a really good recipe for a cream cheese crust, and I shit you
sounds so
not,
good.
it makes such a difference. Holy fuck.
I have a cream cheese like problem. I have like a cream cheese issue. So
Perfect. Let's put it into baking, into
I
the
literally went to
actual bread
breakfast
side.
yesterday at Cantor's, this incredible like Jewish restaurant
Oh, I
deli,
love
and I
Cantor's.
was like, got a bagel. They gave me one tub of cream cheese, and I like freaked out. I Karen. I was like, I'm gonna need some more
You're like,
cream
that's
cheese. Like you,
hilarious. Give me
and
like
that's like
four of
half of
these.
one side. I'd
Yeah.
like it to be equal. I like it to be like an inch of cream cheese on my like half an inch of bagel. I like it to be like
Oh, that
so thick.
sounds I used to be
I
that
love
way,
it.
and now I'm like lighter on the cream cheese, but every once in a while,
Never.
when I get that like warm glob in the middle of the toasted
Yeah.
bagel, oh, it's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I like it when it's uneven because there's like a little surprise of like, ooh,
Yeah.
that was a good bite.
Oh my God. Anyway, guys, you can tell that we didn't talk that much before we started recording because this is what it is before we start recording.
Talking
Um,
about thrilling food topics. Yeah.
yes, as Lyndon would say, there's a lot of waffle. So
Waffle.
we should stop the waffle and get into the cases. What are we
Okay.
doing this week? How did you phrase
I
it?
I I picked it. So I thought I would do murders of academia or academic murders, essentially involving students, undergrad, grad, and professors.
A
A lot of
wider
professors.
a wider
Yeah.
range than the one that I did. Much wider,
Yeah. I
which I
mean,
like. More of a
I
blanket.
I think I picked professors and grad students involved in both of my cases. So it's a little similar, but it's like back to school time, so I thought that was seasonally appropriate. Last year for this time we did Killed on Campus, which there's some overlap of the topics for sure.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Um
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I was in academia, so I might have like a few insights. Although none of these people are humanities people that I'm covering. They're all like sciencey.
Oh, yeah, they are kind of all sciency, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird. My guy is too.
Scientists, they murder more, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. My guy's a mechanical engineer. So,
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Which speaking of, I guess I should just get into it, right?
Yeah, let's hear about him. Let's hear
Okay.
about him.
So this is, I don't know if it's Valery or Valery Fabrikant.
In
Maybe
my head, I'm
Valery.
saying Valeri.
I am
Yeah, in my
too.
head.
But then I was like,
I don't know
maybe
why,
it's
or
Valerie. I don't know.
could be
Well,
wrong.
anyway, okay. Valery Fabrikant. He is Russian. He is Jewish. He's actually from
Hmm.
Belarus. He was
Okay.
born, very unfortunately, January 28th, 1940, so right around my birthday.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Aquarius.
Never like when it's an Aquarius. Jumping the gun on that a little bit. I guess everybody knows what role he plays now. Uh,
Yeah.
so he immigrated to Canada in 1979. So he was 39 years old by the time that he came to
Okay.
Canada. At this point, he already had like a long career as a professor of mechanical engineering. And when he came to Canada, he applied for and was given a job at Concordia University in Montreal, Quebec. And
Okay.
as I heard it, he was at first denied the job, but was so adamant and so, like, for lack of a better word, annoying and so pushy
Hmm.
that he was finally awarded a job sometime in the 80s.
Okay.
And he worked at this job. And one of the ways that he got the job was through, his teaching credentials and the things that he had done as a teacher, in Russia. And
Right.
the problem with that, though, is that he didn't tell, Concordia University that he had actually been fired multiple times for his behavior. Just kind of misconduct and unprofessional behavior and just having issues with a lot of the other professors and faculty. And to me,
Hmm.
it's so, so important, you guys, to check references. I know
Yeah.
so many people are like, oh my God, I hope my boss or the job I'm applying at doesn't check references. It is so important to check them. Where I
Yeah.
work, they check
Yeah.
references, and my ex-boss is like a complete psycho. And I knew she was gonna like try to ruin my life, which she did. And so I had to be really upfront about it and be like, listen, I she's not the person to talk to. I had to kind of get ahead of it because I knew it would be bad. But it was really good because either way, it gave, where I work now an idea of like my former situation and whatever. So anyway, even though it made my life harder, I will say, check your fucking references, check references, do it, do it. The Patreon
Yeah.
I'm doing, same shit. Didn't check references, didn't follow up. So many problems. So anyway, there's my little rant about references.
Check your references.
Check your fucking references.
Yeah.
Ugh. And he actually had told the school that he had left Russia because he was a political dissident. So they were like, "Oh yeah, you're like a, what's it called? Oh my God, a refugee. Like you're a refugee coming to
Yes.
Canada to like,
Political refugee, kind
yes,
of.
yeah."
Yeah.
So anyway, he was hired in 1980. He was only a research assistant, and he was given the job using grant money. He had this job for several years, and he was promoted as the departmental funding allowed, and he ended up being, I believe, an associate professor of mechanical engineering over the years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he was there for a number of years, and he had a lot of fucking issues. He continued to be uh promoted even though students and other faculty were like, this guy's fucked up. Like, what is wrong with this guy? Now, some of the issues that people had, he came off as very like paranoid, really combative, not helpful, very like snooty, like holier than thou. If people asked him a question, he would treat them like they were an idiot, even though, he's a professor. It's his job to teach.
I know so many faculty like this, so this
Yeah.
is not uncommon
Yeah.
for a fancy older male academic
To be this
faculty
way.
person.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, not crazy.
it's really unhelpful and it's really unfortunate because how the fuck is anybody supposed to learn when you're just being like a condescending piece of shit all the time?
A lot of them I find the worst ones tend to be like even sometimes really good at their own work as
Mhm.
individuals, but they never mastered how to like interact with another human person. Like they never
Right, right.
you can become really nerdy and smart at something without ever like knowing how to interact with people
No, it's true. And in fact, I think
or
for a
or
lot of
teach
people,
for that matter.
yeah, that's like the substitute is like you don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable around people, so you're just going to dedicate your life to academia.
Yeah.
But then you have to do something with your education. And there's
Yeah.
only so many researchers in the world. So a lot of people turn to teaching and
Mm-hmm.
they fucking suck at it. And he is no
Yes.
exception. Um, so nobody liked him. There are rumors that he blackmailed officials at the school, threatened them, did whatever he could to continue to get promoted, which is not the way to go, my guy. Like, that is not a good way to get what you want. I'm just going to tell
I
you right
mean, it
now.
sounds like being terrible has worked for him so far, so like keep
Well,
going at it, I guess.
you would think so, but he eventually was denied tenure,
Okay.
and people around him were receiving tenure, and he was getting really, really angry and really feeling like the world was against him. He wasn't at any point being like, maybe it's because I'm a fucking asshole. It was
Right.
always like,
Yeah.
it's somebody else's fault. It's somebody else's problem. If people don't like me, it's because they're idiots or they're stupid or they
Yeah, it's
have an
not
issue.
because I'm treating people like shit. It's not
Yes,
because of that.
completely unrepentant 100% of the time in every situation. He's always
Okay.
right. Everybody else is wrong.
Gotcha.
So, starting in late 1991, after being denied tenure, because, he'd been there since 1980. So, he started to sort of get upset more acutely, I would say. Obviously, he's the kind of guy that's just like always pissed off. But in this, around 1991 and into 1992, he started to find kind of an outlet for his anger and paranoia and frustration. And he started accusing the university of tolerating the practice of academics being listed as co authors on papers to which they had not contributed. So,
Okay.
Valery here wrote like 3 times as many academic papers as any other professor. And that's actually a huge part of why he was promoted despite his behavioral issues.
Right. The
Because
publications.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
huge thing for universities. You have to publish a certain amount of
Yes.
work. And so for somebody like him, who was just like, a paper writing machine, essentially, he
Mm-hmm.
was really valuable to have around. And
Right.
he had other, co-authors, but over time he started to say, they didn't actually do anything. I'm the only one who wrote these. You're giving them my credit. Like, I'm not fucking okay with this. And he was dating back to like all throughout the 80s that he was saying this. And
Okay.
he actually, in 1992, he took them to court. He took the school
Oh
and a
my
bunch of his
God.
colleagues to court to have their names removed from these papers.
This
Like,
is a little petty. Like, dude, I
it's
mean,
so
you
petty. And it's like, you
okay.
still got the credit. Your name isn't not
Yeah.
on there. Your name is on there.
He
Like,
just hates sharing credit so
yeah,
much. He did
yeah. And he just feels like, why am I giving these guys a free ride? And like, listen, if they didn't write it, their name shouldn't be on it. I fully agree. But I also think that like you got to pick your battles. Like, just don't let them do it anymore. And it's fine to
Yeah.
like bring it up. And I do agree that it's not cool, but also like, what is it doing to hurt him? He has a
Yeah.
job. He's teaching, he's writing papers. Like, nothing in
Yeah.
his life has changed from those names being on there.
He's not being harmed.
He's not being
Yeah,
harmed
at
at
all.
all. So it's like, knock it the fuck off. So all of this led to the university deciding in 1992 that they were going to dismiss him as a teacher. Not only
Which
were they,
is wild.
it's not a thing. It's really not,
Yeah, it does not happen.
which also is like really not okay. There shouldn't be a
Hmm.
job. It's like being a judge. Like, those are one of the jobs you should be able to lose like most easily. And
Or like being
instead
a
it's like,
cop, you have to do something pretty dramatic to get fired.
I mean, you can murder people and not get fired, or you get fired and you have to go to like the station next door. I mean, it's like
But he also
nothing.
hadn't gotten tenure yet. If you have tenure, you are literally
You're
unfireable.
you're not you can't you're untouchable. You're done the minute
Yeah.
you get tenure. And that I think is why they were like, fuck no, we're not giving it to this
Hmm.
guy. Like, this dude's fucking crazy. Like, we're not gonna fucking do
Yeah.
this shit.
Yeah.
So this is all going on. He's still asking for tenure. One of the weirdest things about this guy, I think, is that he doesn't like realize how he is. He doesn't
Hmm.
if there's some sort of mental block where he just doesn't understand that he's a fucking asshole, and that's the root of the problem. Like,
Assholes never do,
it's
huh?
weird, but he is like
Yeah.
mega supreme asshole. I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, August 24th, 1992, Valery, who is still employed by the university, but has had up to this point, they had started. So he was coming onto campus for no reason. And he was coming on
Yeah.
and harassing these people that he wanted their names off of his papers. He was coming in
Okay.
and he was barging into their offices and yelling at them. He was sending them letters. I mean, this was like,
Oh my
could get the
God.
police involved level of harassment.
Yeah.
So he came in with a briefcase one day when he wasn't supposed to be there and got searched by campus security. So campus security was now saying, like, if you don't have a reason to be here, we're not going to allow you on campus. Anytime you're here, we're going to search you, because he was being aggressive and he was escalating
Yeah.
the behavior. So August 24th, 1992, he received a contempt of court charge during his behavior because he was like yelling at the judge and being like,
Wow.
or this was earlier in August. Sorry, this was just like a few days before this. So in like mid-August, he gets a contempt of court charge for being a fucking asshole, talking down to the judge. Like, this man cannot stop. He can't help himself.
Oh my God.
So then, sorry, August 24th, he took at least I've read multiple weapons, but I have only seen the weapon that matters as a snub-nosed Smith & Wesson 38 caliber. So like a revolver. He had 2 other pistols that I haven't really heard of, but as far as I know, I think it was the Smith & Wesson that he used. So he goes into the engineering department of the university, and I don't know how he didn't get searched, because again, they're trying to search him, but maybe he didn't have his briefcase, maybe he slipped by, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that could have happened.
Yeah.
So he gets in and he goes to the 9th floor of the Henry F. Hall building, and he starts shooting. So he goes into the department chair's office, and I think this guy was like was the one who was gonna fire him. And he actually, at the time that Valery went into the office, before he shot him, this guy Foivos Ziogas actually picked a letter of termination up and was gonna hand it to him.
Oh my God.
And Valery took out a gun and shot him dead.
So he was about to be fired.
He was like, "Oh, I'm glad you're here so I can fucking fire you." And then Valery shot him dead.
Wow.
Yes. He then shot Professors Matthew Douglas, Michael Hogben, and Jan Saber. And then he went, as he was going out, Elizabeth Horwood, a secretary in the department, was running out the door trying to get away, and he shot her in the thigh. He then took 2 hostages whose names I totally fucking had and then forgot to write down. But he took 2 hostages and locked himself in a room in the department. Okay. Meanwhile, Elizabeth calls campus security. I don't know why she didn't call 911, or maybe it like went to 911 when she called there. I don't know how that worked. But she called campus security, and it was the first day on the job as the head of security for a woman named Virginia Forster. And I cannot imagine what it's like
for
it to be your first day, like taking over this position and get this call. And so
Elizabeth, does not happen a lot. You can imagine.
Like, it's not funny. I'm sorry, but it is funny because I can't imagine how, like, are you fucking kidding me? You probably think your first day is going to be like chill, you know, whatever. Yeah. She'd actually worked on the campus before, but she was like, with this new position, she actually said, it was my first day with the new shirt, feeling very optimistic and a little bit cocky because I was very nervous. And then she gets a call from Elizabeth saying,
"Oh my God,
he shot me. Professor Fabrikant, help me. So, yeah. So she calls 911. The system had crashed because so many people were calling. So she ran to a payphone, also couldn't connect. So then she calls local police, and they're like, yeah, we're already on our way. Like 100 people have fucking called 911. We're coming in. So when they get to campus, she takes them to where the shooting is taking place. They have her go in the elevator with them, and she's unarmed. And she's like, I'm unarmed. Like, why are you having me go with you? And she said one of the cops, who was in like full tactical gear with guns, was like, just stay behind me. If he shoots at us, I'll take the bullet. You'll be fine. And she was like, okay, that seems fair. So Yeah, so after a while there's a big standoff, um and then he ends up turning himself in. He finally, gave up. I forget exactly what it was. He was like trying to negotiate, and I think in the end he just like came out. He didn't hurt the hostages. It was fine. So they arrest him. He goes on trial and he's given 25 years to life.
Okay.
No no possibility of parole until 2017.
I
Um,
imagine he was probably like yelling and hamming up a storm at this trial too, being like, "Oh, I'm
yes,
innocent." And
he was actually, so he fired 10 lawyers, 10,
oh
10 lawyers,
God.
and eventually wanted to um represent himself, and I believe he did.
Yep.
Did not
Yep.
go well. Actually, as part of his, this feels familiar. Sometimes I think like, did I already tell this in a story, or is this just the
Or is this
exact
just
same
Ted
thing?
Bundy?
Yeah. So it's another situation where like they wanted him to undergo medical, like a what you call it. Oh, it's like Ted Kaczynski, where he like wanted to represent himself
Mm,
and he had to undergo psychological testing. This guy was trying to do the same fucking thing. And so he was tested. He was seen by a psychologist and he was diagnosed as having like like a paranoid personality disorder of some sort.
okay.
So suffering
Okay.
from extreme paranoia. But
Gotcha.
even that, they all said that he was like fully aware that he knew what he did was wrong, or that he knew that people in society would think what he did was wrong. He never
Hmm.
felt like what he did was wrong. He was like, I had every right to do this.
Oh
I
my
have
God.
no, I'm not sorry. The craziest thing is that none of the people that he killed were the people on his papers.
So it wasn't even like fitting in within
No, no. I mean, I guess
his
maybe
conspiracy.
yeah, maybe like the chairman or like the head guy, it would have made sense because he knew he was going to fire him or thought he was denying him tenure. But the other guys were just professors in that department. Like they were
Yeah.
completely, but he still, during his trial, stood by and was like, I did nothing wrong. Like, I don't feel bad. I would fucking do it again.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah. So he now is in prison in Canada. And this motherfucker has a LinkedIn because he is still writing uh articles. He's
Oh
still
my
writing.
God.
Yeah. He still
Oh my
writes
God.
he still publishes shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Academics got an academic, man.
It's
You
fucking
can't keep
crazy,
them
right?
down.
It's so
Oh
insane.
wow.
And you'll notice he he is, I say like, is still in prison. It's past 2017, right? Has
Hmm.
been denied over and over any sort of release. So in Canada they do that thing where they'll give you like day release to like see how you do. And if you do well, then they'll release you further and slowly like integrate you back.
Hmm.
Every single time that he's up for like this kind of like Canadian style parole, the judges are like, absolutely not. You've shown zero remorse. You're combative with
Yeah.
us. You're combative with everybody. Like nothing has changed. You're not, like, you have not learned, you've not changed or learned one iota since the day you fucking did this.
No, there's just a Canadian case that I covered recently. I forget what it was, where it was like that, where it's like even Canada won't let them out. Like
Yeah.
that's like you have to be really like callous and unremorseful for that even Canada to draw the line and be like, no.
Yeah, because the craziest thing is they keep giving him the opportunity to get out. And he's very
Yeah.
old and very sick now. And he's like, I just want to go live with my wife. Because P.S. he was married and had kids. And like she's still
Mm.
married to him, which like what the
Oh my
fuck?
God.
It's really
But
weird.
but they're probably like, "Oh, do you feel bad about this yet?" And he's like, "No, it was awesome." And they're like, "Ugh."
Exactly. That's the judge is like, you have less than no remorse. You're like stoked on what
Yeah.
you did. How the fuck could
Yeah.
we ever let you out?
That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
So that's it. That's Valery.
Wow.
He's wild. I did want to say though that while the judge, his case that he took to court for the like getting the names off of his papers was dismissed in 2007 as being like frivolous.
Hmm.
Oh, and to that point, he was he I forget what he's called, but there's, oh, a vexatious litigant. So that's a thing in
Oh,
Canada.
yeah.
I don't know if it's everywhere, but it's definitely in Canada where they're basically like he just creates frivolous, repetitive lawsuits
Yeah,
over and over.
that happens here all the time. Yeah, there's just
Yeah,
people who just like to litigate.
constantly. But in Canada,
Yeah.
they actually label you that and it limits how many suits you can file.
Mm,
So now he can't
interesting.
sit there and file because he was filing like 40 suits a year,
Oh
like
my
trying to
God.
get out like under various things or
Ugh.
trying to appeal or whatever. But even though they labeled him that and have really put like a kibosh on like how a kibosh, sorry, on how much he's, doing, Concordia University did in fact find that like what they were doing was unethical, and they now have like a department that oversees that type of stuff because they did like these professors didn't write those papers with him. So the most fucked up
Mm.
thing about all of this is like in the end, at least like
He was right about
he
that
was
one
he was
thing,
right. Yeah, about the
but
papers.
he didn't even kill the people that were involved in it though. Like,
Well, and
not that he
also
could
like
have or should have.
sometimes even if you're right, you're still not going to win, which is real. Like,
Yeah.
believe me, it's one
It's
of my
not worth
least
fighting
favorite
it.
truths.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like whether or not you're right, you're still an asshole when you're this guy. The way he handled
Yeah.
it from start to finish, is
And
probably why
also
he
it
didn't get the
sounds like
result he wanted.
he was harassing those authors, those scholars, when like they couldn't do nothing. They could do nothing about it at that
At
point.
that
Like, so
point, right.
it's a larger systemic issue. It's not something they're doing individually.
Right. And it's also just like obviously this guy has like obviously he's been diagnosed as having like a mental health issue, but
Right.
he is so stubborn and so like just unwilling to even entertain that might be the case. And he's so otherwise like he's not insane. He just has paranoia, but he's
Yeah.
still fully like has control of his faculties and knows what he's
Right.
doing. So they
Sounds
can't
like it.
even get him on medication. He won't go to therapy. Like he
No,
finally
he
started
thinks he's
going to
awesome.
therapy. Yeah, he finally started going to therapy a couple years ago. And his whole thing was, I'm just doing this to get out of prison. And I'm so fucking old at this point. Like, I don't think he basically was like, this isn't even going to help me because I'm going to be dead before I get out of here. So I
Amazing.
don't know. Fuck that guy. Anyway, like, what a dickhead, dude. Whether you're right or not, you're still an asshole and like, knock it the fuck off. So that's all I have to say. That's my story. Fuck that
Wow.
guy.
What an asshole. Fuck him
Yeah.
indeed. Okay, so my story today is weirdly and not in any way related, but like the shared similarity is that there's a professor who's a colossal asshole. So that is the
Oh,
shared in the Venn diagram. That's what they share.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wonder what role he plays because I know you're not afraid to call a victim an asshole. So I'm really wondering what's going to happen here.
Dueling asshole professors here.
Okay.
So this gentleman is named Ernesto Bustamante.
Okay.
Um, Prepare to get really frustrated too. This is like a really blood pressure raising case
Okay.
on many levels. So,
Great.
at, crazily, I also picked this because it happened in Moscow, Idaho,
Oh
in
shit.
in 2011, which is of course the location of last year's notorious massacre of four students from who were also students at University of Idaho, where this story will kind of like take place.
Dude. Violent little town,
So
huh?
no, it's actually like super not, and like I've seen stories where it's like this happened, and then last year's murders happened, and that's it
That's
for
it.
Moscow. Like
Okay.
it's actually quite safe. Yeah.
That's so weird
Um.
though, because like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Just weird anomalous murders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know a ton about Ernesto's background, but all I was able to find was that he was previously married at least twice
Okay.
by the time he gets to University of Idaho. Once in Venezuela in 2002, where I think he might be from originally. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And again in Virginia, where he went to Old Dominion University to get his BA, MA, and PhD in psychology. Pretty fast, I will say, because by the time he's hired, he's like 30 or so, or by the time all this ends and unfolds, he's like 31.
Okay.
So pretty fast. Although, how old was I when I got my PhD? Casual flex,
You
like
what, like
28 or
28?
something.
I was
Yeah,
actually thinking about it. I was like, I'm pretty sure
yeah,
you
you
were
can do it.
way fucking younger.
You can do it if you take no breaks and you just go straight through.
Yeah.
For sure. So in 2007, Ernesto was hired as an assistant professor of psychology, kind of entry level,
Hmm.
at the University of Idaho. Later, on, we will learn that shortly after his hiring, Ernesto submitted some kind of like formal paperwork acknowledging that he had bipolar disorder,
Uh-huh.
and which I'm not sure if that's required or voluntary kind of disclosure type of thing. But I'm sure lots of people have that and don't disclose it.
Yeah.
But he did. And he said he was receiving medical treatment, taking medication for this condition.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That is not where our story ends, though.
Okay.
Not guy had bipolar disorder at the end. There's a lot more here. Later, I will also see people were saying that he said he had it's not multiple personality. Was it dissociative identity disorder?
Okay.
Is what we're supposed to call it now.
Hmm.
But I don't know to what extent that's true. He was officially diagnosed with bipolar, though.
Okay, which is also not a thing anymore, right?
Or is it just renamed? Or is it different?
I don't know. I feel like bipolar
Interesting.
isn't like the name anymore. It's
Oh,
hard to
okay.
keep up, but I obviously no disrespect. It's just like sometimes if you're not paying close attention, you miss those things,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
it's definitely a thing. It might have gotten recategorized or relabeled.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
So in November 2010, he reportedly stopped his actual meds and began clearly abusing a slew of other prescription meds that he was not prescribed. So just keep
It's a
that in
common
mind.
thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunately very common for that to happen with these types of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Despite his mental health issues, by some accounts, big like asterisk right here,
Hmm.
some accounts, Ernesto did well as a professor at first, at least for the first
Hmm.
few years. He got good evaluations from students, some good evaluations from students,
Yeah.
and he got some positive performance reviews, and records will officially put him as on track to get tenure. So he wasn't fucking up professionally overtly,
Okay.
but we will also learn later that multiple complaints have been filed about his behavior, particularly to female students in his classes,
Not good.
and particularly his engagement in inappropriate relationships with female students, who I'm assuming are graduate students. But there could also have been undergraduates in here. I didn't see that explicitly.
Okay.
So some of these complaints, whew, there's a lot of them, reported that he exhibited "quote unquote" flirtatious behavior and favoritism towards certain women in his classes.
Not good.
He always getting to respond to these complaints, which I think is wild. One response, he said that a student must have misinterpreted his "quote" friendship with a student as a fellow Hispanic, which.
Okay.
So you're showing him favoritism because you're both Hispanic? That's not better.
Yeah, I don't know how that like response, how he thought that was going to be like, oh, cool, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like,
Also, I taught for 7 years, so like you're gonna hear this hot take a couple more times from me. You're not friends with your students.
no, you're not.
At no time. At no fucking time are you friends. Maybe if I'm on occasion when I would meet them like 5 years afterwards.
Yeah.
But even then, it's weird. You're not like that's a very specific relationship.
It's very unfortunate too, because I guarantee you met people that were like rad that you were like in another situation, like I would totally be your
No,
friend.
you can be friendly, you can be very, very,
You can like
social and
them,
friendly.
you can think they're
Yeah, but
great.
you are not
You're
their
not their
friend.
friend. Yeah.
Especially when they're not currently your student, especially not
Right.
in that time.
Right.
Absolutely not. So these complaints also include an anonymous call to the university's ethics and compliance hotline, in which the caller claimed that Ernesto was having multiple sexual relationships with his female students, including one that was, quote, abusive and coercive.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But when they found the student with the abusive relationship thing, she said she denied it was taking place and wouldn't file a complaint. So unclear if this was a false accusation or if she was just too freaked out to admit it.
Right.
Because it also looks bad on you as the student. So she could easily be just trying to protect herself.
Right.
So Ernesto, of course, denies everything again. Another warning separately said that he was having orgies with the female students.
Okay, come on. How are you gonna do that shit? How are you gonna do that shit?
Yet another complaint said that he talked about shooting students in his class to the students.
What the fuck?
He also talked a lot about being drunk and high every other day and talked about his drug use in the class. And according to one student, and this is in Ernesto, Professor Bustamante here's, I shit you not, his quote, cognitive engineering and decision-making lab. He bragged to the kids about being high as a kite on prescription drugs.
That feels really ironic
A
and
lab for
like,
cognitive decision making.
yeah, I'm fucked up.
That's what they're
Like,
studying. Yeah, that's what they're
that's their
studying. Yeah.
fucking professor. Is he doing this shit on purpose? Like, is he
He
trying or is he just
it's insane. Like, I don't know. I have so many questions. I will tell you them in a moment, but I have so many questions here. Um,
that's
okay,
fucking
but yeah,
wild, dude.
cognitive decision making. He should have just, I mean, played it off. It would be funnier if he was like, "This is an experiment. Just, you guys can study how not cognitively sound I
Right,
am."
like how drugs affect like
Um,
your decision
yeah,
making or
yeah, he should have passed it off
something.
as an exercise or something.
Goodness.
Um,
Boy.
so at some point, Ernesto enters into one of his inappropriate relationships with a student, which clearly is how he's having, with
Yeah.
22-year-old female graduate student and his advisee, Katie Benoit.
Okay.
So this is extra bad because
Real bad.
your advisor is like your parent when you're a grad student. Like they are in charge of your life. They like run your life.
Right. It's not just a professor, like they control
No,
everything.
yes, your
That's
whole
fucked
career
up.
academically. So when So Katie had first taken one of his classes in August 2010, and by the end of that semester, they had entered into a relationship. So he's working pretty fast.
That's so fucked
Um,
up.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, it goes without saying, but like, he's so fucked up. You would never advisor, especially professor, grad student, like it's insanely fucked up.
Yeah.
Having been in the position
Unbelievable.
of teacher and of grad student, I can tell you, like, is beyond morally, ethically unacceptable. And by the way, it was not officially against University of Idaho policy, which will come up later.
That is
Um,
really interesting. It was it more
it,
like, do you think it was just no, because there's no fucking way that that hadn't come up before. There's no way that it
yeah,
2010, this is not something that they
the
thought about
first
and
time
chose to just not address.
it was not officially a thing. I think it
That's
was like
fucked up.
discouraged, but not like no. It sure as fuck where I went to school was illegal. Like you could get
I
kicked
find it
out for that.
really interesting that that's not the case at any
Yeah,
school because I understand like on the one end, on the one hand you've got they're both adults, but you have to
yeah,
understand the power dynamics between these adults. It's
yeah.
not the
You
same thing.
Well, it's like with any like employment thing too. You can't be in a relationship with someone who's your supervisor. Like you fucking
Right.
can't. That
Right.
doesn't make you can't do it. It doesn't work on so many reasons.
It's bad on
Um,
all levels. It's just not a good
yes.
idea. Yeah.
So, all right. So here's what's happening.
Ugh.
Ernesto starts basically becoming abusive and threatening Katie by the spring semester, and like what had become a relationship of some kind. Again, not consensual, in my opinion, because there's this uneven power dynamic.
Right.
And he's clearly a predator. He had become abusive, and she's basically trying to like separate herself, and he's like lashing out.
He's not letting her separate herself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes. At least 3 different times, and we'll talk about some of those times, she went to authorities at the university to tell them he had threatened her with a gun, including one time putting a loaded gun in her mouth.
Holy fucking shit. And they were just like,
Yeah.
well, sorry about it.
Yeah. So the university, in one complaint, she wrote, quote, this is just heartbreaking. It gives you a sense of how fucked up this is. This is her advisor.
Hmm.
Quote, most of my activities at this university are somehow related to him, and I don't want to ruin my academic career, but I cannot take classes of his any longer, nor can I permit this twisted behavior to continue for the sake of myself and other women who will come after me. That's what Katie wrote in her complaint.
Wow. And what did they do?
So we're getting there. Basically, they have an internal investigation that unfolds. At no point do they
Mm.
go to the cops.
Always love a good internal investigation. They always turn out so
Internal.
well.
Yeah. There's an internal thing back and forth happening, which we'll talk about.
Hmm.
In May of 2011, here, Ernesto told his supervisors that he sorry, I scrambled. Told supervisors, I think the head of the department,
Hmm.
that because he had changed medication, he was having withdrawal symptoms. So he's trying to cover his tracks a little bit, I think, and be like, this is why I'm acting crazy.
This is
And
why
you're
I put
just
a gun in a
casually,
student's
a
mouth.
gun in her
Like,
mouth.
what?
Yeah. And in June, Katie that filed her first of the 3 complaints I mentioned. So he's like premeditatively covering his bases.
Right.
By July of that year, the authorities proceeded with I guess what their policy is, which is giving the professor a chance to respond to the student's allegations. So basically telling him everything she said
That's
and who
safe.
said it.
That makes so much sense. That's extremely safe for the student. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Just fucking brilliant.
Yeah. And they claimed later that Katie had to be okay with this first, and she was, but still.
That's also coercive. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
She's okay with
Yeah.
it in the same way she's okay being in that relationship. Like in reality, she doesn't really have a choice. She's just,
She
it's
doesn't feel like she has a choice.
self-preservation.
And she wants him to face consequences. And they're saying this is what has to happen
This
in
is the
order for
only
that
way
to
to do
happen.
that.
And so she's like,
Yeah.
fine.
She's not okay with
So
shit. She doesn't have options.
So Ernesto denied everything Katie alleged about the abuse. According to him, they had a friendship, quote unquote, which again, you shouldn't
No,
even have that.
but also no.
They had a friendship, but Katie ruined it after she stole prescription pills from him.
Mm-hmm.
He characterizes her as an addict, drug addict, and said that he saw her deal drugs and quote unquote use marijuana on a daily basis, which like, hi, she's a college student. That doesn't prove shit.
Yeah, also what does that have to
Um,
do with anything? Like he's
nothing.
just trying to, yeah. Yeah.
Defame her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess later on she would admit to having some issues with pills and taking some pills from him, but she said it was after he threatened her and she was just really scared and like in a bad place. And again, I don't know what the point of this back and forth is with the university. They're kind of like reporting what one Ernesto says to Katie and back and forth. And I'm like, he should just be fired. He's having sex with students. Like,
Also,
he should
like
just be fired.
if she took the pills from him, I feel like that's still the bigger problem is right there. Like, how is this
right
pertinent or
again,
you know, like
the little fussy details of their relationship don't matter
at
when he's
all.
having relationships with advisees. Like that to me, that should be enough to cut him loose.
Right. Absolutely agree.
That's
It's
it.
so interesting that they're humming and hawing and trying to turn this into something
Yeah.
other than exactly what the fuck it very clearly is.
Yeah. And at first, he also submits a complaint against her for defamation, which, like, my eye roll.
Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah. And later on, he eventually, in a later interview this summer of 2011, he will admit to having a sexual relationship with her and with several other female students. But he says it wasn't against university policy. Because this fucker looked that up.
So he first like
checked
checked to make sure that he was okay to say that. That's insane.
Yeah.
What a fucking asshole.
So Professor Bustamante here asked, soon to be former professor, asked during his official interview in July, what would happen if I resigned in the middle of this investigation? And they said, oh, we'll just close the investigation. You're cool. And so he said, okay, I will resign. So he resigned very shortly afterwards to basically get out of any actual consequences.
Right.
And his last day was August 19th.
Okay. Ooh, August 19th, August 24th. My massacre was August 24th.
Your massacre. Okay.
Well, the one I covered. I shouldn't have sounded so excited. God damn it.
Yeah. 3 days after Ernesto's resignation, Katie went to school officials to tell them for the third time about his threatening behavior. They told her that the professor had resigned and that she should contact the police.
Okay, so basically what they did was they just wasted her time, put her through hell, and allowed this to escalate, obviously.
And allowed his behavior to escalate towards her because he knows now, essentially, that in his eyes, she got him fired, quote unquote. But they allowed him to resign, so there was no official mark on his record.
God damn it.
Now Katie's like, what the fuck? And they were like, oh, you should probably do something about it with the cops because we didn't do anything.
Fuck this fucking university, man. What a bunch of fucking dickheads.
In case you were wondering, I already said this, but the university actually did technically contact the police, but I'm not sure why, because they weren't able to disclose any details because, according to them, because of confidentiality agreements or whatever the fuck.
He put a gun in her mouth. Like,
yeah.
What?
Well,
like,
what I don't understand is if you tell your therapist that shit, they have to call the cops. So, and disclose it.
Yeah.
So why is this different?
Yeah, I don't fucking understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Do they have to? If somebody like, no, I think if you like, if you say you're going to kill people, not if somebody's hurting you.
Well, yeah, it might not be if it was in the past, but if there's a current threat to your health or someone else's life or your life, then they do have to call the cops.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah. So I don't understand why universities are kind of different.
right.
Um, yeah. So later that day, again, after Katie filed her last complaint, Ernesto went to Katie's new house in Moscow, and unclear how he even found it because she moved
To get
to
away
fucking
from
get away
him.
from this guy. Um, and at her new house with her new roommates, she had been baking cookies
Oh my God.
and had just stepped outside to have a smoke. And this is when
Mm,
Ernesto approaches her and shoots her over a dozen times.
nice. Yeah, that's not at all expected, right? Not at all what we all
Yep.
fucking saw coming.
He
Because
then
what
went
the
to a
fuck?
nearby Best Western hotel where he checked in and killed himself in his
What a
room.
fucking punk. What a fucking
Yes.
punk ass. Oh, fuck
Yes.
him. Fuck
Yes.
him.
When investigators later get to the scene, they find in his room and his car 6 additional guns and tons of ammo.
Jesus Christ.
Um, yeah, later in various documents, we'll actually learn that he was super, super into guns and even carried them on campus and in class.
What the fuck?
So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, universities are terrible a lot of the time, but like, I cannot fucking imagine at the university I went to, someone carrying a gun into class, sleeping with students, hitting on students, talking about drugs, and he's allowed to teach for 4 years.
Right. Like, what the fuck?
What is happening?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So as many people may know, just real quick to sideline this a little bit.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're telling a story or when I'm telling a story, the other one of us will kind of look up the person to like kind of like read along almost or like see what they look like.
Hmm.
I wanted to see what this guy looked like. And I just found his obituary on legacy.com. If you read
Oh.
this, your head will fucking explode. I didn't
Oh
really
my
read it because
God.
you were talking, but I just saw little things about how the University of the Andes they sponsored the Award of Excellence and Creativity, Dr. Ernesto Bustamante Salome, an annual monetary prize awarded to students of the ULA that resemble his qualities.
Oh my God. Why is this a thing?
His qualities? What is it? The murder? Is it the like fucking around with students? Like, what qualities
What
do you
an
have to possess to get this
asshole.
money? Yeah.
Oh my God. I
So
didn't
I'm
see this thing at
sorry.
all.
I
Yeah,
had to.
go read this obituary.
This is so fucked. I'll post it in the show notes as a link to some of our shit. Are you
That's,
reading it right now?
God. Oh my God.
Unreal. They're like, he is a genius. It starts with one of a kind. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, send it to Diva. Like, what
That's
the
insane.
motherfuck, dude?
He was a colossal asshole.
He was a
Like,
complete piece of shit. Whoever
wow.
wrote this, like, was this his mom? Like, I
I,
don't
I was
know.
gonna say this has got to be a family member or something. Like,
Yeah, completely fucked. But also the fact that
wow.
like there is a university that gives out a fucking annual monetary prize to students
I
in
don't
his
know that they
honor.
do. I doubt it. I'm
I
like,
really
that
hope
cannot be
that's
true.
not true.
No.
I really hope that's not true.
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, sorry, I
Okay.
didn't mean to sidetrack, but
That's okay.
I needed you to
Thank you.
know this.
I missed that. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So genius, brilliant, visionary Ernesto here. This is how his story comes to an end. But I'm going to talk a bit more about how much the university fucked this up.
Yeah, please.
So, the University of Idaho was criticized later for not warning students via their emergency alert system after the murder. So there was a killer professor on the loose,
Who murdered a
and there
student?
was who murdered a student, and there were zero texts. Like as a person who you always get those on campus when there's
Right.
any crimes, any little even petty burglaries, you get those texts on camp as a campus living
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So they didn't bother to tell anyone about this.
So they just stayed the course of like the way that they were
Hmm.
behaving. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, also his university access was never canceled.
Oh,
So all
nice.
his little key cards, whoopies all worked and everything because I think probably because he resigned and his last day had just been the prior. So he easily could have gone on to do like a school shooting and killed a bunch of kids if he
Jeez.
wanted to.
That's so fucked up. That's so
Um
fucked up.
yeah, like this person has talked about shooting kids. He's been talking about violence in sexual relations, doing all these terrifying criminal things, and you cannot like just revoke his fucking key card.
Yeah. Jesus.
So, in what is reportedly described as a kind of PR campaign to assure everyone they did nothing wrong, the university quickly releases all their documents, over 4,200 pages of records, which, again, the fact that it's that thick tells you you should have just fired him.
Yeah. Yeah.
About their investigations, internal investigations into Bustamante. And these reveal all the complaints that I've already gone through, where I
Right.
pulled everything from.
Right.
The details about his guns, all the stuff he said in class. And it reveals that at the time he was also involved in another quote unquote relationship. Like at the time he
Hmm.
murdered Katie. So
Right.
he was like, I really think he was a fucking professor to prey on young girls.
This is
Like,
all
I
I care
really
about.
think that's what he's there for.
Yeah.
Yes, because he's doing it full time. Full
Also,
time.
he's pretty young. Like he was
Yes.
31 when he died. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, sometime after the murder, Katie Benoit's family, filed a
Hmm.
complaint against the University of Idaho. I think rightly so,
Good. Yeah. Fuck
for
yeah.
$3 million for their fuck ups. The press reported in 2012 that the university reached a settlement with the family. So I don't know what that was, but they got something.
Good.
Yeah. So after the university, afterwards, the university released a really lame, nonsense statement about how they would more strongly discourage relationships between faculty and students. And they did eventually decide to respond by actually making these relationships against policy. So that was their big stride forward again, which
How
is
fucking
that
long would they wait? It should have been like,
dude.
oh,
That is very standard policy in like every university ever.
that is
So
so fucking crazy to me that we're even like discussing this and that it wasn't like immediate, like, oh, now this is a thing. Now this is what they do. Like, this is now not okay.
yeah. And also what
Holy
bothers me
fuck.
about their response is that they made the issue the relationship. They're like, well, the relationship shouldn't have happened. We should have discouraged it. And I'm like, no, the issue is how you responded to the allegations of his criminal behavior.
Over and over and over and
Because
over, and
it
not just with her, with
wasn't,
multiple fucking students.
yeah, because it also wasn't, to me, the line is different, like of the go to the cops line. It was not just him having quote unquote consensual relationships, it was him physically abusing her and threatening her life.
Right.
Like
And
that to me is like that's where you go to the cops.
it's just interesting to me that they just continued to diminish it even after
Yeah.
they should have learned that they're diminishing it is why this happened. But
Yeah.
instead, they continued that thought process of diminishing it to like, oh, well, they just had a bad relationship. Not like, oh, our
Mm-hmm.
policy,
Mm-hmm.
our actions, this man in general, like none of this was part of what they took into consideration. They just boiled it down to, oh, well, they were just in a relationship and it wasn't a good one. Not like
Exactly.
you
It's
shouldn't be in the
no,
relationship. Like,
you should respond to allegations differently. And like I said, when it's a relationship, that's one thing. But when he's doing criminal, violent shit, that should be
yeah,
the line. That should be
yeah,
the line where you go to the cops.
yeah.
Um, period.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed. God
okay.
damn it.
One last final epilogue here. Sometimes I do this. I feel like one out of every 10 times I do a
Mm-hmm.
case, I do this. But I just wanted to say that the way the press presents this case is often really fucking blood boilingly angering to me,
Mm-hmm.
because they're constantly sensationalizing it as like a lover's quarrel, and I get really, really
Oh,
mad.
yeah.
They're always calling Katie his ex-lover,
Get the
or
fuck out of here.
calling this a fatal romance.
Not his
Um,
victim.
One headline said, quote, "Professor murders student after affair goes sour."
Die in a fire. Straight the
And I'm
fuck
like,
up, dude.
no. Another local paper went with this for their headline, quote, "Drug accusations traded by former lovers."
Are you
Which,
fucking kidding me?
yeah, yeah. And I'm like,
Oh.
look, this was not a crime of passion. This was not a relationship murder. He was
Mm-mm.
an abusive, predatorial, scary person. And this was an abuse of his power. It was not a true, even like relationship or affair, quote unquote. Because,
Why are they continuing
like,
to put this on them on like even like the same level? Like it's
yeah, it's so. I just really want to note that because I hate that tone of like, again, making it a relationship thing. And I'm like, no, it's not a relationship
it's not.
conflict. He's an abusive, terrifying predator. And like, the like clearly this is also a person who has great mental issues as well, but like at some point
Obviously.
that ends and the asshole predator begins. Like there's a
Right.
big melange of things going on here. But
Yeah.
like yeah, that just shit makes me crazy because I'm sorry, if a professor, especially an advisor, is fucking preying on students like that and coercively pressuring them into relationships, that is so out of the realm of consensual relationships. Like that may as well be like a stepfather and a daughter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it may as
Right.
well be like that. It's
Power
so
dynamic is
inappropriate.
so crazy and so not
Yes.
okay and like so fucked up.
Yes.
It's really frustrating hearing the way that the university handled this. It's really
Yep.
frustrating. And to me, that
Yeah.
means that they've just been very, very lucky that the only other thing that's happened has been these college murders, because clearly their policies and practices are not doing anybody any favors.
No,
Like,
no. And the university, like universities, I'm speaking in general,
mhm,
um, like most corporations, I think their main thing is to protect their own image and to constantly like just do PR, PR, PR,
yeah,
PR to like not have any bad shit come out on them on the press.
right.
And in this case, I think it like backfired because it's like, well, you did that so much that in the end you guys look like shit and you
Which
had to
is
pay out a giant settlement.
It's really unfortunate how often that's the case, because just like in so many other instances, this young woman who did nothing wrong, absolutely not one fucking thing wrong,
Yeah.
is dead due to the wrongdoing of so many people around her. When she was asking for help, when she was reaching out, when she was doing everything she should have done, she still ended up the victim because of inaction on the part of the people who could help her.
Yeah.
And because they were trying to just cover their asses, they ended up essentially being kind of complicit in her murder, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fucked up.
No. And so yeah, that's fucked up. University of Idaho makes you curious if they fucked up anything with this, or are fucking up. I guess it's an ongoing case. Anything with the Idaho murders, the main
I mean, hopefully they don't
story
have
right now.
very much involvement, because it sounds like they wouldn't do
Right.
a very good job, you know? God
Yeah.
damn, dude, that's
No.
crazy.
Oof.
That's fucked up. Oh, sorry, I had a big
There we go.
yawn there.
Two
Too,
asshole professors. They exhausted
yeah,
you.
I'm very tired after. Um, I did want to call out that one of our listeners pointed out that Fishkill from last week's episode is
Mm.
actually, is it Dutch? It's a Dutch name.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, she said it came from Feast and Kill, which is like fish stream.
yeah. And that's totally awesome. Thank you so much for pointing that out to us. We do stand by the fact that it's still a silly name, and
We
we
were
don't
like,
feel,
this is the hard stance that we're gonna take. It's still
yeah,
silly.
we're not backing down. Also, they're white colonialists. So
The
if
Dutch.
we're colonizers, they can suck a fish
Yeah.
kill and suck a fish egg. But it was really interesting to learn that. So thank you so much for telling us that. It's always cool to learn the history of names and things. So please keep sending us cool information like that. We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So thanks for pointing that out. Still a silly name. What
Yeah.
else? Until next week, we've got more of these fucked up ass cases. The one that I'm doing next is just like depressing and sad. So just be ready for that, you
Cool.
guys. Yeah. I hope everybody's
Perfect.
down for that. Yeah.
Okay.
These academic murders are kind of like bleak. Like there's just,
Mm-hmm.
like I hate to say it, there's definitely sometimes where like there's more to a story, or you don't feel as bad, or like
Just
I don't
bleak.
know. There's some sort of resolution that at least feels a little good, and then these ones
Well,
all just don't. They just don't feel good.
academia is bleak.
It is, I guess, in
So
all
maybe
ways.
it's
It's
maybe it's
fitting.
fitting.
Yeah.
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 No.
Well, thanks for hanging tough with us on these stories. We hope you all enjoyed. Please like, rate, review, share with everybody you've ever met in your entire life. It's really
Yeah.
easy to do that, because if you're like me, you're friends with them on Facebook or Instagram. So feel free to
Mm-hmm.
share far and wide. And until the next two bleak ass cases,
Stay.
off our
Let's
stay off them.
down.
Bye.